Hi gang, Rob here. It is the afternoon of 9 January 2016, and I've got sort of a follow-up review to do for you guys today on a knife from Benchmade that I reviewed a few months ago. And the reason I reviewed it a few months ago is that this was sort of a special factory order, an exclusive from Benchmade and KnifeShipFree.com, Derek Bone's company, and it is the Benchmade Axis Stryker model number 908BK-1501. Wow, that's a mouthful, isn't it? It is a black class knife. It is a familiar one. The Stryker in Axis lock configuration, which we've had on the market for a few years, in G10 scales and a 154 cm blade. This one, though, as you'll remember from the first video, has beautiful satin carbon fiber scales, Parkerized black stainless steel liners, anodized blue, I believe, aluminum standoffs, Parkerized fold-over deep carry pocket clip, and a black Cerakoted blade made of CPM M4. And Derek Bone from Knife Ship Free sent me the first review subject of this model. It was actually his personal Axis Stryker in CPM M4, and I gave it a pretty doggone good review. And subsequently, I don't know if my review had much to do with it or not, but several of you guys have bought these knives and sent them to me to sharpen. So my initially positive review, followed by repeated handling of several examples of this model, finally led me to cough up the $250.75, a lot of money for an Axis lock Benchmade, and buy my very own. I did. It actually cost me my Microtech Ultratech. I sacrificed my one and only out the front automatic to be able to fund this purchase because I like it so much. Just to recap, we have a drop or spear point blade, depending on how you look at it, an 1/8 inch thick. That spine thickness carries all the way down this flat. Sort of a saber or bayonet grind, I guess you could say. Not super thick stock and pretty good geometry. This main blade bevel, about 9.6 degrees inclusive, so about the same as the Benchmade 940 or Griptilian. Not super skinny in its main bevel angle, but not terribly thick either. Comes to a pretty thin dimension behind the edge, and I'll sort of come back to that as we go. My experience with Benchmade's M4 is that it seems like they run it a little bit harder than Spyderco does. I'm guessing they run this stuff up around 64 Rockwell. I mean, it takes forever to sharpen, especially when we get into the finer grits. It just getting the scratches out from previous grits just gets very difficult as we get up into that 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 grit range. In fact, I normally sharpen M4 to a little less of a mirror polish on the secondary bevel than many steels that I sharpen, just because, well, you guys don't want to you don't want to know how long it takes to get it to look like this. So generally I'll sort of stop at 1,000 grit and give it some polishing passes on a 3 micron diamond, and then finish the micro bevel to 0.5 micron. So you still get great cutting performance, but the brilliant mirror polish isn't quite there because it's hard to do. I mean, it's and not necessary. It still looks great, but this one I went just kind of a little crazy with. It was a couple hours. And it's still not perfect. I kind of know where the bad spots are. But let's sort of get back to the overview. So we've got a almost 3 5/8 inch blade, 4 11/16 inch handle, plenty of real estate. I would classify this sort of a small to medium sized knife as tactical knives go. Still superb in a variety of grips. The saber grip is awesome. The reverse grip is also. Hammer grip is super comfortable. Draw cut grip, great. I mean, what a great soldier knife. Overhand pinch grip is good, especially if we sort of put the middle finger in the index finger groove and come forward on a little bit. Plenty of room for the index finger to hang out if we do that, and it gives us great control. A little unorthodox in its ergonomics, but effective nonetheless. If I sort of come back on the handle and utilize this funky looking little thumb ramp, I get a nice pinky rest and lots of reach from my index finger knuckle to the tip of the blade. You notice we've got some handle in between there, but that's still effective reach. Just a super cool knife. And it has some aspects, I must say, that when you put them on paper would make me not like this knife. So let's kind of go over that. And I've had some pictures of this on Instagram in the last 24 hours, and a couple of you have caught on in your comments. So what does this knife have that I generally don't like? Well, I don't like Benchmade coated blades. Their old BK1 coating I found to be not very durable, really gloppy, inconsistent in thickness, and it messed with the action of their knives. This is Cerakote. It is not their BK1 coating, not remotely their BK1 coating. I still find it a little grainy and inconsistent in its thickness. They do, however, go in with some kind of a grinding or milling operation in this area of the blade tang to true up the blade after coating so it centers well and doesn't affect the action. So bravo Benchmade for finally starting to do that. Also, this Cerakote seems to be much more durable than BK1. This knife spent many strokes on a strop for the secondary bevel to achieve this polish, and I challenge you to find where the Cerakote has worn in its margin where it meets that polished edge. It doesn't get shiny, it doesn't feather, it really behaves almost like a good black DLC coating. I'm really impressed with it. And how about that action? Well, I got zero play in any direction and a nice free dropping blade. Don't know how you do much better than that. That's great for a coated blade. I mean, really great. So objection number one from TheApostleP, overcome by Benchmade. Number two, I generally hate this clip. I find Benchmade's fold over deep carry clips generally to be not very good clips in how they work, and this one, frankly, no exception. There's no overcoming this. On most jeans, they're going to stop, the pocket is going to stop where it hits the screws, and you sort of have to wiggle it and jostle it to get this clip all the way down to its deep carry max, so to speak. At least it's not painted. It's black parkerized. You know, it retains adequately. They're not very strong though. It's hard to see how little tension that is, but and if you try to put more tension on these by squeezing that bend, it'll probably break. I've done it. I much prefer the split arrow clip or the old Emerson style pocket clip, but we'll not be switching to that because the whole pattern will not facilitate it. So we're stuck with it. We're going to live with it. it's okay. Yeah. So I'm not a black blade guy. I'm not a deep carry clip guy from Benchmade especially, but yet I love this knife. It's not ultimate slicing geometry either. You know, like I said, it's got the geometry of about a 940 or a Griptilian, and top that off with this sort of gritty coating. It's not slippery, not like cold steel Teflon. It's more like black DLC. But you know, you can still make it cut, I think. Let's see how quiet I can make it. See if I can make it S-curve a little for you. Hard to make it, hard to make an S-curve with this coating. It's hard to get started. There we go. So, you know, everything's a trade-off in life, isn't it? But let me give this thing a quick wipe again. One thing about this coating, the coating does not show fingerprints. Sure doesn't. But would you just look at the beauty of that blade? You know, I'm hard pressed to think of a knife blade that has a sexier shape than this one. And when you put that black coating next to that mirror polished edge, it's just special. It really is. Other things I generally don't like about Benchmade's, a company I love, and this thing is shared by almost every Axis lock knife on the market. Plunge grind to edge grind issues. They almost all have it. This one, no exception. I have extended this choil just to barely clear the plunge grind. I think you can see that the plunge, it's hard, I'm going to shadow there you can see almost a line of demarcation where the plunge grind ends there, and it runs almost down to the back of my cutting edge. That's after more than a 1/16 of an inch of extension was made. And how about this? I kind of waited to buy one of these because I didn't want to have this issue. About the most obtuse secondary bevel I like on a knife is 16 degrees. If it's going to be my knife, that's where I want it to be. If I have to sharpen it more obtuse than that, generally it's not a knife for me. Well, I noticed on the ones of these I've worked on that if I went below 17 with the factory choil length and plunge grind, I was going to end up with a big flare at the back, and you know what, a $250 knife shouldn't have that. So I found myself sharpening them at 17 or 18 degrees because I didn't want to leave a big uncoated area in the choil on those customer knives. But since I've discovered the Presto Gun Blue pen, look what it does. Get this in the right light there. You'll see just a little rub from the Axis bar right there. But other than that, we got this nice uniform black coating in the choil, reapplied with the Presto Gun Blue pen. I'm pretty happy with that. Looks great. So that's how we were able to extend the choil, get down to 16 degrees, and still have a knife that looks factory. I am so happy with that. Huh, I forgot to turn my ringer off. So, you know, generally I don't drop $250 on a knife that has a few issues that just bother me. unless they're this good looking. And frankly, I know those issues are you know, kind of just me. Some of that's objective, but some of it's just personal preference. I've been able to satisfy myself with everything but this clip, but it's just going to have to stay. I will say this, guys, when Benchmade does a $250 Axis lock knife, they have good reason for charging that. Superb blade steel, perhaps my favorite folding knife blade steel on the market today, CPM M4. It's so hard, it's so wear resistant, it's so fine grained, and it's so tough. You just hardly ever have to resharpen it if you're using the knife for anything that resembles its intended use. It's awesome, awesome stuff. Other premium materials, of course, would be the carbon fiber scales, and they are completely void free, beautifully machined and finished. The shimmer is awesome. They're not super slippery. That sort of satiny finish, you know, gives your hand some gripping power. Man, the liners are parkerized to make sure everything on the knife is black except those blue standoffs, and of course this beautiful cutting edge. But everything is just tied together so wonderfully. And the handle, unorthodox maybe so, but really, really good in hand in a lot of ways. The balance point is right where you want it, right in the finger groove. This may be my favorite Benchmade folding tactical knife ever. I've said this once, and I've said it 100 times, that until now, in my mind, Benchmade hasn't made a better tactical folding knife than the 710. Maybe not true anymore. This is a little shorter knife, to be sure. Doesn't give you the reach, but man, it's pretty cool. But to finish my point on the quality of this knife for the money, let's take a look at our centering. It is not quite perfect. It's going to favor the left side just a bit, but very good by Benchmade standards. I have not taken this knife apart to try to fix it, and I think you can see why. I'm not going to take the knife apart because the action is so sweet, just as it is, that I don't know, when it's time to clean it, I'll take it apart and work on the centering. But for now, you know, if it's a millimeter to the left, it's just going to have to be a millimeter to the left. But generally pretty precise for a Benchmade. It's kind of funny too, because when I look at this blade, only 1/8 of an inch thick, carbon fiber scales, deeply skeletonized liners. I think you can see what I'm talking about there. Big old holes in them. It's a chunk. I don't know, it's 4.6 ounces, and it's all of it. Same weight as a Sabenza, and almost the same exact size. I would have thought it would be a little lighter than that. Maybe they got lead buried in it somewhere, but it's good weight. Just to compare, and you've noticed, you haven't seen me do a follow-up review on the Benchmade 940-1 because I bought one, and you won't. I don't love the steel. I think Benchmade has a very hard time grinding that steel, especially putting an edge grind on it, because most of them I see, the blades have no beard. What I mean by that is the distance from the cutting edge to the top of the choil is almost gone. In every one I see, and there's generally a big hunk of recurve here. It's like the person sharpening those knives at the factory couldn't get it right, and couldn't get it right, and couldn't get it right. Pretty much there's no blade left, there's big recurve in it, into the box it goes. And when you're paying mid 200s for a knife, it better have enough steel on that blade to sharpen it a few times. So I get them when they're brand new with very little blade left and try to make them right. And that S90V is just a tough steel to work with. It's evident in what I see from Benchmade. It's evident in my experience sharpening it, and frankly, it doesn't get that sharp. And I don't think it holds an edge nearly as well as M4. So that, that knife almost exactly the same price as this one. And by the way, those are never centered, and the actions are usually horrible. And that's not a coated blade. That's just a function of how hard they are to grind. You can't make a straight one. This knife, 100% better quality in fit and finish than the 940-1. Good idea, Derek. Thank you for pressing Benchmade to make this knife, and great job, Benchmade, on execution. It is just beautiful. Love it. Guys, if you don't have one, get one. The only place you can buy them is knivesshipfree.com. They are still in stock as of the production of this video. I'm sure Derek would be happy to help you. They also come in a partially serrated version if that is your cup of tea. That's all for this one, my friends. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the word and my Axis Stryker are sharp.